Back to history. Let's take a look at the exact way they're running themselves now. Under what circumstance can we possibly say, how long can you limp along? These guys just aren't limping along, and it's those type of comments that put a negative slant on the real facts. Let's focus on the real facts. If we bring jobs back to Lexington, and I'm all about that, we love jobs in Lexington, those jobs are going to cost money. If it costs money, either rates go up or we don't make a profit. Which one are you going to give up when you bring these jobs back? We hit a certain level of efficiency. We want our rates low, but what we're saying is we want to keep our rates low, we want to make a bunch of money and keep it here, but we want to create a bunch of jobs. Sounds like you ought to be a council member, because that's the kind of junk they talk.
No, thank you.
Well, we're going to go to our next question here in just a moment. At the vote no microphone, but again, I would invite anyone who is here that has not made up their mind how to vote on this issue, who may have a question to help clarify their position or what their position is likely to be. This is a good forum in order to do that. Let's go first to the vote no microphone. Your name, sir, and question.
Jamie Clark. My question has to do with condemnation of eminent domain. If we are condemning an existing business that is working perfectly, isn't that introducing a slippery slope for future action? Our mayor last week has already threatened to condemn a mall and turn it into a softball field. If we decide that VOK 2 years from now is a profitable entity that we'd like to take over, what precedent is there that we can't take over VOK?
You've got to be very careful where you draw your analogies on these. The water company is a monopoly resting on a city franchise. It's not a competitive business in the sense that the broadcasting stations are, although they're heavily regulated by the FCC. The point that I think is lost in talking about eminent domain is that the water company, as all of the utilities do, exercises this power weekly. Every time a developer brings a subdivision plat before the Planning Commission for approval, it has to be signed off by every utility who dictates where their easements will go on that plat. The only authority the water company has to exercise this eminent domain on an individual backyard basis is through the statutes as a derivative authority from the urban county government. The purpose behind the exercise of eminent domain authority is to acquire property for the good of the general public. The statutes in Kentucky specifically say acquisition of a water system by a city is by definition for the public good, and that satisfies the answer.
Public business?
Lexington Mall is not a public business. Lexington Mall is a private business in competition with every other shopping center in Lexington. It's not a monopoly of working a franchise issued by the government.
But isn't that the one the mayor wants to condemn and threaten to condemn?
I think the mayor did say that she wanted to make that threat in order to get the developer to the table. That was her choice, but that is not at all a comparable circumstance to something so critical for life as the supply of potable water. If we never have another big box mall in Fayette County, we're not going to die.
Let's go back and again focus on...
My daughter may disagree.
Our sales staff would disagree too.
Let's stick with the facts. We say that the utility company exercises their rights of eminent domain every day when developers get their property taken from them to bring in utilities. The big difference between what's going on then and what would like to be going on now is the fact that these developers come in and ask, would you please put these utilities in for us? Please take our land and make it much more valuable by putting in these utilities. Please tell us where you want to put them. It is a voluntary situation. Yes, I know the utilities are sometimes a little tough about where they want to put it, but let's not confuse condemning a profitable, well-run business through the rights of eminent domain simply because we want to own the profits, and condemning property that the developers bring to us voluntarily and say, would you please put the utilities in?
I've represented some developers who weren't really into the voluntariness of all of that.
There is an exception to every good occasion, and good lawyers like you are going to find them.
You are listening live to a discussion of who's going to control the water delivery system here in Lexington. It's on your ballot on November the 7th. Cruiser live from the main branch of the Lexington Public Library in downtown Lexington. With us, Vice Mayor Mike Scanlon and Bluegrass Float Chief Counsel Foster Ackerman Jr. And we have another question, this time from the Vote Yes microphone. Thank you for waiting, ma'am. Your name and your question, please.
My name is Suzanne. I have a question for Vice Mayor Scanlon. One of the facts about this water issue is that the vast majority of cities around this country do own their own water utilities. I've heard estimates anywhere from 90 to 95%, because cities believe that the security of their water.
Could you get closer, please, to the microphone?
Because people believe that the security of their water is so important that that is something that should be locally controlled. And my question to you as our Vice Mayor is, can you explain to me why it is that you don't believe that our community is capable of doing something that the vast majority of communities across this country is doing?
That's a good question, and it really does deserve a good answer. The facts are that a lot of municipalities do own their water company. Those facts also tell us that these water companies, the vast majority of them, have been owned almost since their inception. So there is no millions and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of debt associated with operating those water companies. The city grew up with the water company. They've been managing it for years. They're experienced in it, and they know how not just to operate the pipes and the hydrants. They know how to operate the political environment as well. In Lexington, we have never operated a water company or the political environment that goes with it. By that I mean, when we acquire a water company for hundreds of millions of dollars and the debts associated with that, there's all kinds of things that go along with that. The intensity of the rates, the intensity of the overhead. We're arguing already about how many people we should have to run the water company. I don't know how many it takes. There's no way Foster Ackerman can know how many it takes. But with a debt load like that, it's not going to be just like all the other cities that grew up with these water companies. The debt that comes with it and the political environment that comes with it just isn't the same. And it's not so much that I'm against us running it. What I am so much more for is it fair to take over a well-run, profitable company just because we want to own the profits? We say that it would be better for our security of our precious resource if we owned it locally, but nobody's told me exactly how it's better for our security if we do own it locally. We have the EPA, we have all kinds of people who have regulatory authority over this water company. We lose the regulatory authority of the Public Service Commission if we own it. I don't know, and I would challenge Mr. Ackerman to tell me, or anybody in this room to tell me, what level of security do we acquire that we don't already have if we own this water company? Are we going to put guards at a pond somewhere and say you can't mess with our water? What exactly are we going to do different if we own it that makes our water more secure than it is right now? Would somebody tell me that, Mr. Ackerman?
As we have said from the beginning, all things being equal, local ownership is better, and that's the entire answer to your question. The same security measures will be taken as are needed. The same system will be run, the same employees will be employed to maintain that system who know what they're doing. I can't believe we're so dumb in Lexington we can't figure out how to run a water system.
Now, that is a great response.
Just a minute, Mike, now, just a minute. What you said was nobody has shown you where this is fair. When the water company bought its franchise, the laws were on the books which allowed this to happen. And so it's not a matter of fairness, it's a matter of the legal environment in which the franchise was granted. And we're simply asking for the opportunity to exercise our legal rights and acquire the water system.